let's pass to the next speaker, Mrs. Marla Slavner, mother and producer of the amazing kid Kasha, who is a kid that in her 16-year-old, decided to take a year from school, a takeoff, to make a documentary all over the world. And of course, with the permission of her mother. So it's our great pleasure and honor, Marla, that you accepted our invitation and that you're here with us joining this webinar. Please.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Carol, for inviting me. This is a real honor, and I'm very excited to speak about the journey that we've both been on for the last 8 years. Where do I start? I'm a single parent, and I raised Kasha from 3 years old, and I'm also an activist. I've been very involved in many social justice causes. Before my career as a producer, I was a media producer, a media sponsorship consultant, and was involved with nonprofit organizations and sponsorship, corporate sponsorship, and media relations. So, using media for social purposes that go beyond entertainment have always been a focus for me. And then Kasha's journey as a young girl was introduced to activism at a very young age. At 8 years old, she became very involved in the causes of environmental, and social justice. And she started as a young entrepreneur. So I'm also here with my parents' hat on in terms of how to cultivate and step aside and let Gen Zs, take the reins, because as Carol mentioned, they're more aware, more connected than ever. They are producers themselves, and they're quite confident. If anything I've learned is that they know how to message, they know how to get the story told, and it's a matter of harnessing their energy to create for social good, rather than for, the endless streams of mindless content that we all see on the internet already. Food pics and cat pics and all of that. So Kasha, at a very young age, 8 years old, started her social justice journey, got involved in clubs, created clubs, and became an activist herself. At the age of 14, she was introduced to the organization that I belong to, and I'm a board member of, a quite old feminist peace organization in Canada. And by her participation in a youth peace camp, her passion was sparked to go on and present this idea to take a year out of school and travel the world to meet people and listen to their stories of activism and provide a platform for those stories to be told. This came out of her overwhelm of the mainstream media and the depressing news and the sensationalized stereotypical news that is often presented. And she was searching as a young teenager for an alternative to this narrative. So she decided if there wasn't one, she was going to create one. And so she approached me with a really crazy idea at the age of 14, after she had been introduced to peace and the issue of peace through a youth peace camp. And they took her as a delegate to the UN, and the world opened up to her. She met activists from all over the world, from grassroots organizations, with speaking to people who really were turning dust into gold with their activism. She had no prior experience traveling in the world, and she came out of this conference at the UN really ignited to do something with her passion for photography and filmmaking. And so she said, "Mom, what if I can take a year off school, document these stories, and you know, originally it turned out to be a photography project, but after spending 6 months cultivating the concept and rounding out the edges for what she wanted to do, she said, this, I think, would be a better suited for film. I'm already, you know, on my way, and why not just turn the camera on? So that's what she did. And I'd like to show you 8 years ago, actually this week, she launched her first Indiegogo campaign for her first film, her first feature documentary called The Sunrise Storyteller. And that film went on to screen at 60 international film festivals and win 30 awards so far. And I think, Carol, you have the link to that trailer.
We'll just take a moment to wire.
No worries. Now, she was 14 at the time of this trailer.
I forgot to mention, Marla, that you're Canadian. You're not American, you're Canadian.
What if I could go visit people making change in their own communities? Show the world that change is possible, no matter where you come from.
We are all done packing. Behind me, I've got my trusty backpack. This is what I'm going to be living out of for the next 6 months, so we'll see how it goes.
Always the big question, how you respond about that problem, how you respond about that circumstances.
And the reason that I first started working with refugees is because of the inspiration that I got from working with them, and that seeing these people who had no opportunities, who have really worked so hard to be able to make opportunities for themselves.
I have to keep going because there is someone that is following me.
You can have money, you can have everything you want, but happiness is very important. You can't buy happiness.
That's great. Thanks. That was actually the trailer that she produced on the road about 3 months before coming home, because we had fundraised prior to departure, and for I believe we did 2 Indiegogo campaigns, and again, being a single parent, I said to her, you want to take a year off school? That's great, but you know, you're going to have to find a way to do it. So this was at the time when Indiegogo Kickstarter became a thing. And she researched it, and we launched an Indiegogo campaign. And this trailer was the trailer she put together for the 3rd one that we did while on the road trying to get back home. If, Carol, you have the link to the Indiegogo campaign, I just want to show a little bit of the evolution of her as a young person pitching this concept to the public, and then how it evolved from there. And if you don't have it, I can put it. It's in the email I sent.
Yeah.
Yes, it's wired.
I think it's easier if I put it on the, if we put it on the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peace and climate justice are more connected than we realize. I'm Kasha Sequoia Slavner. I'm a Gen Z documentary filmmaker and a peace and climate activist from Toronto, Canada. I've been feeling so much anxiety about climate change. Uncertain, frustrated. People are making decisions for our
anyone see
generation
it?
without
Because
taking our future realities into consideration.
Sorry, Carol.
Code Red for Humanity, released today by the United Nations, paints a grim picture for our future unless we take action now.
I'm on a mission to show just how closely connected peace and climate justice are.
Wars, a lot of militarization are taking away budgets, but are also putting a lot of carbon emissions in the air.
Through stories of youth making positive change.
Those who are already exposed to violence and war are those who are also most vulnerable to the extreme weather events.
Movements of all kinds are pretty much single issue. They're siloed. Climate change and nuclear weapons, we have to deal with them together.
And stop both clocks ticking towards our extinction. How can we turn our anxiety about these existential threats into bold action that holds leaders accountable? How can we find hope?
The climate crisis isn't just about carbon dioxide emissions, it's about people.
What if people were as well trained in waging peace as soldiers are in waging war?
We need a peace movement to accommodate everyone because everyone's life is at stake.
A community led by the most marginalized sectors of society, fueled by this love for peace and love for the planet.
Take small steps, baby steps. The ripple effect will be very dramatic. Each one of us is powerful beyond measure.
It's my hope that these stories of courageous action ease our personal and collective anxiety, igniting us to stand together and catalyzing a unified intergenerational peace movement for the survival of our planet and all living beings. Unless we do something, we're in deep shit.
That was great.
Sorry, there's been
Marla. That was great.
That I don't think anyone really saw it. It came in 3/4 of the way through, and it was we're supposed to play an Indiegogo one from 2013 first, and then a picture, and then this. But I mean, we can always put the links up for people to
Yes,
check
please
them out.
do, and we will communicate it to everybody. Maybe some technical problem prevented us from doing it. I don't know why. We had tested it before, but those things happen in live transmissions.
They happen. So, and they happen more on the road from where we were trying to produce the first films as well. So, you know, that's another thing is that not everyone has the opportunity to be able to travel the world or to make films. We certainly worked very hard to make that happen, being limited on resources at the time. And she pulled out all stops. I mean, once you tap into the creativity of a Gen Z and they have purpose, and this is important takeaway that I have found that, you know, there's no stopping them. They're very committed. They're very competent. They're very capable to do these things. As I said, this first film went on to win 30 awards, and it's screened internationally. And now it's an accepted program in the school boards in Canada. And so teachers can call upon her to screen the film and do workshops on civic engagement. So the new film, 1.5 Degrees of Peace, does a deeper dive into the social issues of Gen Zs are facing right now, which are, the climate crisis and the increased insecurity in the world in terms of conflict. And so she is working towards proving the thesis of the linkages between the two in terms of achieving climate justice, that without peace, climate justice is not possible, and without addressing the climate issue, peace is not possible, as we'll see increased military budgets. So again, just coming back from COP26, where there was a strong youth presence, strong Gen Z presence. One thing is that they're determined to change the systems no matter what. If, the old dinosaurs are in the way, they're gonna, work around them, doing whatever they can. They'll create new systems. So their stories need to be stories that empower others. And this is the focus of the type of storytelling and narrative that Kasha seeks to put her lens on. She, again, very tired of the old paradigm and the old news cycles where everything was sensationalism and overwhelming. And you have to remember, Gen Zs are dealing with a lot of anxiety right now, with the multiple threats facing them, from the pandemic to climate crisis to the nuclear countdown clock to job insecurity to racial inequalities, and the list goes on and on and on. It's very actually disheartening to see what they have to deal with, but also inspiring to see how they can use their skills, if harnessed properly, to use their activism in ways that will uplift themselves and others. So I think, what I'll do is pop the links in the chat, and if anyone has any questions, I'm here for about 5 minutes, but then I actually have to go because we're in the middle of a shoot. So I really appreciate your time today.
Or to any questions to Marla. Έχουμε ερώτηση.
Όχι. No, yes. No.
Not yet. Okay. Let me ask you a question then, Marla. You've been a single parent and an activist. You seem to inspire your daughter to follow your steps in a way, and you supported her way through this journey. And she managed finally to show that human spirit can triumph over adversity, and find hope and be resilient. So how do you now feel after 3 years of this journey, and after 16 international festivals have selected and presented Kasha's film, and now you're in the production of her second work? And how do you see her future through this adventure, which started rather as an experiment, if I'm not mistaken?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Well, I've seen her grow from, a very shy, and she has a lot of these qualities still, but she's grown and evolved as a filmmaker since the early days. It's been 8 years. She's completely self-taught. That's the thing about Gen Zs, is that they can research the internet. They have the best tool at their disposal for learning. And she's an alternative learner, and she picked up the skills and has developed them. She has gotten to the point, I think the success of the film surprised her a lot, because she was just putting it out there. She didn't really know where it would go. But it touched a point in people's hearts that made them look at things a little bit differently. And I think that's why that it was honest, and it was it was coming from a real place where she wasn't replacing the voices of others telling their stories. She really created a platform for people to be able to relay their own stories, which is very important, as Carol will know and has talked about in terms of representation. So setting the privilege she had as a filmmaker and providing that platform for underrepresented communities to tell their stories was really an important aspect of her work, and it still is to this day. I think based on the success of the first film, she's grown the confidence as a filmmaker. I mean, to have that by literally 20 years old is quite remarkable. To do a complete feature, because it was very challenging. And on top of that, she produced 10 exhibitions and a photography book, a journal. So all of this was done, and it is quite possible to be done if you manage your time properly. And so she would use her summer holidays from school. She would come home after school and designate a certain amount of time to write or to edit. And, over the course of 2 years, coming back from the initial adventure out into the world at 16, by the time she was 18 and graduating high school, she had a fully fledged edited film ready for distribution. This one is a really big challenge, this current film, because it is hitting right where, personally, from a more personal point of view, it's her future, generations ahead of her. So how she finds her motivation is really through the courage and the activism of other Gen Zs and other older activists that she's been mentored by, because it's only as a community that we can stay strong and lift each other up. And this work is not easy. Being an activist is not easy, but what's the alternative? So I'm proud that she has that grit that it takes, because it is very challenging work to do when it's a deep dive into the subject, and it's a feature film, right? It's even
Marla. And where can you find her? On Facebook? I know she's on 1.5 degrees of separation.
If you go through the website, all the social media links are there. And we do have an Indiegogo campaign right now. It's Giving Tuesday, so we're running that till the end of the month to help support the film. And if you have any other questions, just get in touch with us. We'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Marla. We are also proud of Kasha and you for bringing her up this way.